This is the PL-89 thought calendar. It's also known as the Mercury thought calendar. It's also known as the PL-89 quantum thought calendar and the PL-89 quantum entanglement calendar. And it's also known as the PL-89 multidimensional quantum thought calendar and the Mercury, all of those names, and PL-89 Mercury multidimensional gematriatic quantum entanglement / quantum thought calendar. All of those names apply to this calendar, which was started in the late summer of 2012. However, when I thought about it this morning, I realized that it actually went a lot before the summer of 2012. And there's one interesting little tidbit I'd like to share about it, how it got created in the spring of 2012. It's a gematriatic thought calendar, which means that every date and every box, the numbers here are based on verses in the Bible, primarily in the book of Exodus and the book of Leviticus, various passages in the Bible, and it turned into a mathematical structure, a continuum, a sequence of counting, sequence of numbers, and with many purposes. And I've been interested in some of the terms that you heard me call this calendar a few moments ago are borrowed or taken from quantum mechanics and quantum physics, and things like entanglement or quantum different terminologies from these from quantum mechanics and quantum physics, because I found that some of what it does has that kind of a feel to it, or functionality. Both, actually. It's both mental and feeling as well, intuitive and logical. This is a lunar solar calendar. Oh, going back to 2012, right? The numerical value of the Hebrew word Geula Shlema. Geula means redemption, Shlema means complete redemption. And Shlema is spelled with a yud, Shin Lama Yud Mem He, Shlema, Geula Shlema, has a numerical value in regular Hebrew gematria of 430 exactly. And the word misparim, which means numbers, has a numerical value of 430. So one could make the connection between numbers and mathematics and the ultimate redemption, and that's exactly what this calendar is. One of the premises that this calendar is based on. And in the year 2012, the year that this calendar was conceived or received or perceived or developed, thought up, received, downloaded, was exactly 430 years from the calendar reform of Pope Gregory the 13th. And it's interesting that everything here is a mathematical pun. Okay, so today's the 13th of Tammuz, and I just mentioned Pope Gregory the 13th, so the 13th comes up. And Pope Gregory the 13th reformed the Julian calendar on February 24th of 1582 in a papal bull known as Inter Gravissimas, the most great, the most serious. Inter Gravissimas, which called for a reform, a restructuring, a reworking of the Julian calendar to make the year more compatible with their celebration of Easter. And I'm not sure exactly what it was. It was the Julian calendar was losing a certain amount of time each year, So it was either to get Easter closer to Passover or something like that. But that's not the main point. The main point is that tax returns come like in the springtime. At least back then they did. And when I was getting a tax return, and when this calendar was being thought up, and I meditated on these dates, that the year 2012 is exactly 430 years from 1582, precisely. And not only is it exactly, it was like almost to the day. I mean, I don't know if I got my tax return on February 24th, but it certainly was around there. It was like the springtime, so it was within a month or two of exactly 430 years from, and guess what my tax return was? $430.00. So how is it that when I was thinking about this calendar reform of something that, and when this was developed in 2012, that it was 430 years from that papal bull of Pope Gregory XIII, and my tax return was precisely, I mean, tax returns always have some sense, and it's always like, 589.33 or 721.52 or 5,333.77 or something like that. But to have a tax return that was $430.00, and that was exactly 430 years from this Julian calendar reform, was like, I mean, I don't know who else could have managed that to happen, except for the one above. Who else could have coordinated that for me to think about this idea, this calendar, and 430 years from that date, and my tax return, which is right around the springtime. Okay, I don't want to belabor the point. You got the idea. So that being said, that was a confirmation, but it started in the springtime, and it had to do with a sequence of numbers from the passages in the Bible. And the sequence is 8 plus 9. It comes from Leviticus chapter 25, verse 20. We're in the year now 2025. That's also kind of interesting. And I had no idea that would be the case when I thought of this in 2012. I had no idea that 13 years later, which is now, in the year 2025, I would be making daily presentations of it. This is a lunar solar calendar, which means it combines the solar calendar, which represents the sun, but more metaphysically represents Esau or Esav, the Gentile world, and the lunar calendar, which represents the moon, which represents Jacob, Yaakov, and the Jewish calendar, which represents the moon, and the implications of these two great lights that were, as foretold in Genesis 1, created on the fourth day of the week. The two great lights in the heaven, one to rule by day, one to rule at night, and the stars. At Shemesh, something Ireach Bekochavim. One light to rule at day, one light to rule at night, and the stars. And so the planet Mercury plays a big role in this because of its orbital period of 87.691 days. And a new idea is that I haven't shared before, is that Mercury, although when I said Mercury, I was referring to the planet Mercury, the chemical element Mercury on the periodic table of elements has an atomic number of 80. And the amount of boxes that you're looking at right now are 80 boxes, because they are 8 columns and 10 rows. And it's called a PL-89. Another reason that's newly being shared today is because while you are seeing 80 boxes, because it's 8 times 10. There's another row of an additional 10 days that you don't see that is considered within this calculation. And it's referred to as the 10-day twilight period, which means it's the last 10 days of any 90-day period or any 3-month period. And it's the line that comes under here. It's invisible, yet it's very much used and practical, and it's there. So you have 80 and you have 90. You have 80 days that you see, and then you have the 10 days that you don't see, and that would be also 89. Like 80 and 90 can be like 89. And so there's another reason why it's called a PL-89. But PL-89, when I learned, since we're according to the Chabad, today's a big day. Today and yesterday are like one composite day. It's called the Chag HaGeula, the festival or the holiday of redemption, because the Alter Rebbe, the Frierdiker Rebbe, which means the Rebbe before this Rebbe, Rabbi Yosef Yitzchak Schneerson, blessed memory, was locked up in prison, and on some trumped up charges of like conspiracy, some false charges of conspiracy, or something like that. And so he was miraculously freed yesterday, but it was a holiday that day, so they had to wait. All the offices, the bureaucratic whatever, were closed in Russia or whatever it was, White Russia or something. And so yesterday and today are considered a redemption day, because like microcosmically what happened with the Baal Rebbe, it can happen with all of us. It's like we get released, but even though we get released, we're still in prison a little bit. It's like we have the freedom to go, but it's still it's like kind of like the after effect until it processes completely. It takes a while. In this case, it took a day, but we know that the Tehillim says for a day for Hashem is like 1,000 years is like one day. So maybe just for 1,000 years or 2,000 years, let's say, we've just been kind of just processing it until we can actually realize it. And this, I think this calendar will help the mathematical realization of it. It's one of the purposes. And so on this day, which is interesting, on this calendar, now there's 3 dispensations of it. And one is called Dispensation 8, one is called Dispensation 4, one is called Dispensation 2, which is one we're in right now. And it seems to me that when Dispensation 2 is over, then Dispensation 1 will start, and then that'll be it. And if you notice, there's a pattern. Every dispensation it halves. So 8, then 4, then 2, then 1. And right now we're in 2, which means that Dispensation 8 means for 8 years it was in one format, one mode of calculation, of circulation, and for 4 years it was in one mode, and in 2 years, and we're in that 2-year period now, which started about a year and a quarter ago. And so it was like 2012 to 2020, 2020 to 2024, and 24 now to 25, in the summer of 25. And during this time, I'm starting to make presentations about it. So on this calendar, this box, the box of July 9th, which is today, July 9th, 2025, Wednesday, which is also Yom Revi'i, 4th day of the week, the 13th day of Tammuz. Now, July 9th is, in this dispensation, is box number 26, as you can see. Because Rosh Chodesh, or the first of the month, it doesn't matter if it's July 1st, or if it's Rosh Chodesh Tammuz, because it's the lunisolar calendar, it combines them into 2. And you'll see on the in this one sort of composite month, mercurial month, it synergizes them. It basically says that, okay, let's just say now it's +4, so like, or -4, because Tammuz 13 minus 4 is 9, and 9 plus 4 is 13. So July 9th plus 4 is Tammuz 13. So it's referred to in this calendar system as a +4 reality. And so July 9th is 26. And I don't know if I mentioned this earlier, but I've definitely mentioned this in previous videos, that it takes into consideration the Julian calendar. The Julian calendar, I did mention it with reference to Pope Gregory making a reform. And because of that, 13 days are, the Gregorian calendar is 13 days ahead of the Julian calendar. So the Julian calendar is also factored into this calculation. So it's the sun, the moon, Mercury, and the Julian calendar. Those 4 factors are calculated here. So if you look at 26, this box, and you subtract 13 days, meaning the Julian calendar, you're going to come up to box number 36. And you might be thinking, if you're on box 26 here, and you subtract 13 boxes, you go back, and you'll see 36, so it'll be like, so what? But on this calendar, when you get to the 26th day of the month, you get to box number 36 over here. It doesn't work that way for every number. It's not going in a straight line. It's not just like a mirror image, if you might be thinking that, because it doesn't go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. It goes 8 plus 9 plus 8 plus 9, and then it cuts off at 40. And so it's interesting. Tomorrow it won't do that. Tomorrow it'll be 35, and then you subtract 13, and you'll be at 4. What does 35 have to do with 4? It has nothing to do with 4. I mean, you can subtract 31 and say, okay, it has 31, but it doesn't work out like in that way so well. But as I mentioned yesterday, and since in the Chabad calendar it's really the same day, there's a reason why it works this way with box number 26. Because 26 minus 13 on this calendar, I'll just read all the numbers, okay? 26, 18, 9, 1, 32, 24, 15, 7, 38, 30, 21, 13, 4, 36. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. Why is that special just on 36? Because this day of the 13th of Tammuz, which happens to be this year, the 26th of the 9th of July, the Julian calendar is going to be 36 and 26, and when you get to the 26th, you're at 36. But look at right next to it. What is right next to 36? You'll see 1927. Right? When did this prison release happen? It happened in the year 1927. You can look it up. That year, the 12th of Tammuz was exactly aligned. It was a +0 reality. So July 12th was Yud Beis Tammuz. It was exactly the same numbers. And so Rabbi Reuven Wolf said that 98 years number 98 is very big, and it has to do with the Messianic era, or coming of Mashiach, or something like that. And right now, this year, we're 98 years. So it could be the reason why it lines up so perfectly that you have the 26th, 9th of July, and it matches, and Julian matches up with 36, which is right next to 1927. You see that? That was the year that it happened, 1927. And it's pretty fascinating if you like calendars and time and things of that nature. Things that are clean, they're clean and they're mathematical. You can just see them straightforward. So that's all that was said for the Gregorian calendar. So then you have to add 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. That will put us at the 13, which is 20. And what's really interesting is that the Daf Yomi also plays into this. I don't think I mentioned the Daf Yomi, but the Daf Yomi came around in here's a really, really important point. The Daf Yomi came around in the same year that the very last country, or one of the last, but I think it was the last time I checked, but Greece was the last country to adopt the Gregorian calendar. And I remember watching a video or some kind of documentary that a certain Greek Orthodox, there was a sort of in-house fighting within the Orthodox Church. There were certain monks that were fighting tooth and nail that they didn't want to have the Gregorian calendar. I don't know exactly why, but maybe there was some dark stuff that was going on. And I remember one of the monks was like a sorcerer or something like that. Anyway, that year was 1923 when Greece finally adopted the Gregorian calendar. And what's really interesting is that exact year, 1923, September 11th of 1923, was either the first or second day of Rosh Hashanah of the year Tafresh Pei Dalet. It was 1923 is when the Daf Yomi started. So isn't that interesting that the Daf Yomi started when the Gregorian calendar took over? And I can't prove it, but I think there's a reason for that. I think there's something like the Daf, I don't know what's behind the Gregorian calendar, if it's obviously it was meant to be because we've been using it for a long time, but maybe, anyway, the point is, I'm trying to figure this one out. If anyone's interested in this, please let me know. How the Daf Yomi interacts with the Gregorian calendar and why. And I'm just going to explain one more thing today that, it's going to be the only thing about the Daf Yomi, about the Hebrew calendar, which is the 13th of Tammuz today. 13th of Tammuz on this calendar comes out in box number 20. So you can see 20. And you know that every tractate in the Talmud Bavli starts on page 2, Daf Bet. It doesn't start on page 1. It starts on page 2. And on this very day of the 13th of Tammuz, the official Daf Yomi Daf of the day is 21 of Avodah Zarah. But since it starts on page 2, it's really 20 pages. It's really 20 pages. So how interesting is that on this day, the Daf Yomi is 20 pages into it, and the PL-89 calendar is actually on box number 20. That represents the 13th of Tammuz, which is the official Daf of today, is Daf 21, which is 20 Daf, which is box 20. I see these things every single day. And whether it's chapters, chapter and verse numbers, page numbers, and there's many more things that I wanted to say, but because of time, I'm just not going to say them. But it's it's mildly frustrating because I see all these connections, but I don't know what to make of them. So that's the presentation for today.